Welcome everyone. Really excited for this session. Today we're obviously going to be talking about ChatGPT ads, the newest, shiniest thing in digital marketing that we're excited about. So I'm going to present on kind of the landscape, what we've learned so far, what we've seen from our testing, challenges we've had, and things I'm excited for. And then I'm going to hand over to Dan, who's head of demand generation from Moneypenny, and he's going to talk about his experience from brand side, which I think is really exciting. I don't know if you want to say anything, Dan, as a little hello. They've already kind of
Hi, I'm Dan. Nice to meet everybody. So as Kat said, I head up the demand gen team at Moneypenny. So we basically are across anything that drives awareness, demand, and leads into our business. So when we get into the weeds of ChatGPT, we'll find that it's doing a bit of all of that, which is good and encouraging. For context, for people that don't know Moneypenny, I guess as well, just to set the scene of like how we're approaching this as well. We are the leading customer conversion partner, conversation partner, sorry, for businesses across the UK and US. So we use real people and AI to answer calls for businesses, deal with inbound lead inquiries, customer messages, etc. So we are very much approaching this from a B2B lead gen angle. And I guess the other interesting thing is like our customer base is all sorts of people, plumbers up to the biggest law firms in the country. So again, ChatGPT is very much in our kind of sphere of target customers at the moment. So hopefully that gives some context.
amazing. And I'm approaching it more from an agency perspective, trying to look more broad stroke on all range of clients we work with it on. So let's get started because we have 1 hour, which sounds like ages, but we've got a lot to tell you. So the ads are here. We've been talking about it for ages. So what? Now I'm guessing you're curious or excited, which is why you're here, right? But I just think it's good to take a step back sometimes and remind ourselves why this is exciting. So I believe it's really exciting because it's a genuine contender for Google and Meta ads, which we haven't had for a long time. You know, we've had other platforms rise up like TikTok and stuff, but really in the play for digital marketing spend, they haven't been as big. I think this genuinely is because ChatGPT knows so much about its users. People share all kinds of stuff with it, which I think is really interesting. One thing I would stress is I don't think that anybody should be necessarily looking to replace their Google budget or their Meta budget with this. I think it should be an opportunity to diversify your media. And that's great because that de-risks you. You know, it means that in the event of one platform, getting shut down for whatever reason or something going on with your account, you've got another string to your bow that you can call on to get customers, which I think is super important. And the third thing I love about it is it's already set up quite well, although it's got its limitations. For a first go at a platform, it is bloody good. They must have invested a lot of money. And it's really easy to use and very simple, but it's easy to set up, stuff like that. So I think it's exciting for that. It's like, in my opinion, already it's more appealing to work with than Meta ads, which is not that hard, I guess. Meta's a nightmare, but hey ho. So that's a topic for another day. If we think about ChatGPT, a lot of people are already bucketing in with their search and their PPC kind of window of marketing and the way of looking at how they're spending their budget. But it's not really search, and it's also not social. If you think about the three main ways that people use ChatGPT, and this data is from ChatGPT, ironically, people are there to learn. And they put in really detailed prompts and questions and queries, and they want to understand things and get advice on a much deeper level than they do with Google, in my opinion. People are also there to create stuff, get it to do things, analyze things, build code, stuff like that. That's completely different to any other platform we work with. And thirdly, people are there to discuss. I mean, I don't know if anyone on this call has used it as a therapist, but I know lots of people that have, genuinely. People are there to get advice. I like to get advice on how to look after my plants and my garden. That sounds so silly, but like it can give me so much more than I would ever see Google giving me as long as I put the right information in. So I give it more information. And I know some people that actually talk to it, they use the microphone rather than typing, which means they can give it even more information. which means it's learning at a phenomenal rate, which is exciting. So here's 3 examples of how I've used the platforms, kind of just to illustrate what I was talking about, really. I just took a little screen recording the other day because I thought it was useful. So like, I would say on Google's the first one here on the left. I'm using it in a much more functional, I need to find the answer to something or book something type way, which is great for direct response. And that's what we're all used to with PPC, right? Instagram in the middle, very, very different in the sense that, I don't know why it's paused, just has, in the sense that I'm there to look at things, to fill a bit of time. I'm not really there with purpose, but I get ads and they do work. I'm used to being sold on there. ChatGPT on the right, I'm there for information. I'm really there to get more information on the initial query. So in this example here, I was asking about how to look after a tree I've put in my garden. I know, I'm becoming middle-aged, I'm very aware. And then it gave me some more information about I should get something called mulch, which maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't. And then I can ask it more questions about that. I don't really use any other platform like that, to be honest. It's more like a person or a friend in a garden centre to me in that moment. I'm not necessarily there to be sold to yet because we're not used to having ads on there. So I think that's really important to consider when you do your media planning. So I like to put in numbers because I reckon most people on this call like numbers like I do. And if you've worked in paid media for a while, you need to kind of look at things this way. And what I think is important to remember before you get too excited, and I have been really excited about ChatGPT ads, I won't lie. It's not as big as the other platforms, but it is growing at a phenomenal rate. It's already half the size of Instagram in the UK, which is like, how long has it been going? 2 years max? It's insane how quickly it's grown. Even bigger in the US, obviously. So this is just UK and US stats. And I think that's really important to note that whilst it's not quite as big, it is already a massive opportunity. And it's in both of those markets. And obviously there's other markets too that I just haven't focused on for now. So worth knowing, not the same as these other platforms, but definitely growing. So one question we've been getting a lot of is, most people don't use the free version, do they? They're on the subscription and therefore ads don't apply. Or my audience don't use the free version. My audience is premium and they only use the paid for, therefore it's not relevant for me. So what percentage of users of ChatGPT do you think are using the free version right now? Anyone want to guess in the chat? Okay, 70% from Nikki. Oh, 98, 90. Okay, so quite high numbers. Interesting. That's really interesting because a lot of people I've spoke to have been like, oh, most people use premium. It's so not worth it. Oh, the numbers are coming down. Interesting as I say that. Okay, so the answer is actually 95%. So the majority of users are on the free, which means most of them are available to advertise to, which is great for us, right? Which is really, really good. So, if anyone's saying things like, well, I don't really think it's right for my customers, I would really challenge that. And whilst we can't target by specific customers, we can target by prompts. I think they're on there. So yeah, really, really interesting to me. So as I've already said, it knows a lot, arguably the most out of any platform out there about your potential customers, which is really, really exciting. And there's real opportunity as first movers right now, which it's kind of ironic I'm saying this because probably a load of people will go and launch campaigns after this webinar. But right now, according to Adthena, there's 10,000 advertisers live in the US and only 2,500 in the UK. Those are tiny numbers. Like Meta and Google will have like hundreds of thousands of advertisers. It is saturated. Like it's really, really competitive, really saturated. Whereas if you look at the ChatGPT, at the moment, there's actually not that many people on there. So here on the right, you've got like an example of the top spenders. I think this is in the UK right now that are being tracked by Adthena. I thought that was quite interesting. A lot of the big players, obviously. I know, and we'll share this from our own campaign stuff later on. I know from our own insights that not a lot of people in our space, as in marketing agencies, not that many are on there yet, which really surprised me because I think it's such an interesting opportunity to test. Why would you not get something live? If anyone's wondering, and we will have time for Q&A at the end, by the way. If anyone's wondering, what's the minimum spend? The minimums are really low. I think, am I right, Dan? It's like £25 a day is the minimum campaign spend. So it's really accessible. Arguably more accessible than other platforms, actually, because it's less competitive. And CPCs are quite low. So yeah, I don't work for ChatGPT, but I probably sound like I do. It's definitely ripe for taking, basically, is what I'm saying. So something to remember when you're media planning. Kerry Rose did this post. It was more about like general LLM usage and search and stuff. But I thought it was relevant because people aren't on ChatGPT to click off. They are there for information. They want to learn and they want to find answers, but they don't necessarily want to click out of there. So that's really important when managing expectations around what you think the campaign you're planning will do. I would never sell in a campaign and say, off the bat, it's going to have the same performance as Google or Meta, because I don't think it will. Now, Dan's got some stats later that are really interesting and sort of do show massive green shoots of performance, but I still would sell it in as this is a brand awareness, getting in front of the right customers and drawing them in to then get them down the funnel type piece of marketing. So I feel like I've hammered this home enough now. You can't treat it the same as other platforms. Think about the conversations you've had, for example, and what you might want to see. So treating like contextual display. Here's 2 examples that I've seen that I think are great, particularly this one from Key Equity Release. So we were researching a little bit about how to save money and make money and money in general, right? And this ad came up. And what I liked about this ad is it's giving me an option to learn more. So it's tapping into that whole reason that I'm on ChatGPT to find out more information. I just thought that was really good. And then we found this one for Stay Sure for travel health insurance as well that I thought was, it was super relevant, which was really, really good. Obviously, we have seen ads that aren't always relevant. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I just thought I'd share these. So what can we do now? I'm going to get a little bit into the sort of technical examples now. Hopefully you find that interesting. A few details on the setup. So limitations to be aware of. Some of these you might know, some of them you don't. So functionality wise, there's things like locations, you can target by country, but no deeper. So for example, if you've got a strategy that involves specific cities or states, can't do that right now. It's a very, very simple setup in terms of it, campaign, ad group and ads, and you're targeting as ad group level. So they've clearly deliberately copied Google Ads in a way that makes it easy for us to use, which is great. But there's loads of a severe lack of insights coming out of it. And I will show you some examples later. The biggest one being you put your prompts in or your contextual hints as to what you want to target. You don't get any insight into what you're appearing on or which ones of those are triggering. So the things you've got to play around with really kind of strategically are your structure, because you don't know. Thanks for sharing that, Nikki. Yeah, it can be slow to be verified depending on your industry, particularly. What industry are you in, Nikki? That might be useful for the group to see that. While they're showing that, I'll just carry on. So there was a bit of a lack of in tech. Okay, great. Thank you. We're trying to get a medical insurance brand live at the moment, and they're having some policy issues. It's kind of typical. So there are some limitations. However, it's developing fast. Even this morning, Dan and I were looking for this call and they've updated the way they flag to you that your bid is limited. Only slightly. It's not a massive update, but they're changing stuff, which is great. So I mentioned structure. This is an example of a structure we've got for one of our campaigns for House of Performance. It's very, very simple. I've just gone with 3 ad groups, one for audits, one for like people searching around best paid media agency and researching, and one for our brand, just to see if we're picking up any traffic around our brand. Now, you can segment the data by this, which is great. You can't know that audits is only showing on audit related searches, for example, or brands only showing for brand queries. So, I do think, particularly with Google PPC, we're very used to knowing a lot of information and controlling that information. on ChatGPT, there's no negatives at the moment. There's no way to block certain things. There's only contextual hints. So it's actually, if anything, it's a bit more like PMAX with signals. So you've kind of just got to get comfortable with that and know that. I'm leaning more towards a more granular structure. So I'm looking at building this out with more ad groups with fewer contextual hints in it, just to see what that does. Conversion tracking. There is conversion tracking. We just have had none. So there is conversion tracking, but I'm not treating this as a direct response channel. So I'm not so worried about that right now. And yes, use UTMs, but not dynamic UTMs. It needs to be static. From what I've seen, dynamic doesn't work, which is a bit of a pain point of mine. Hopefully that will come. Nothing else to point out on this slide, I don't think. Okay, next point, ad space is really tight. So we are used to, with all the platforms we advertise on, having lots of headline options. The AI will test headline 1 against 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This doesn't have that. You have 1 to headline and 1 description and 1 image per ad. You can launch multiple ads, of course, and I recommend you do. So we've been on a bit of a journey with this. We started with this ad on the bottom left, which was a ChatGPT recommendation, I won't lie. And I immediately thought, oh, that image, there's so much in there. It's so small. What's the point? Like, you can't even read it. So then I moved to, well, I left it live, but I moved to this one in the middle that's got just our plain logo, which I think looks a lot better. But we're struggling with the truncated copy because if you notice in the headline, you get 50 characters, but actually once you get past 24, it's truncated off. So really, you should have some ads with a very short headline. And similarly with description line, that's truncated at 48, which is a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Most of the traffic's on mobile. So you need to, can't believe I'm saying this, you need to think mobile first, obviously, and keep it short and sweet. So we ended up launching this ad on the bottom right, and that's done quite well. But interestingly, so far, the ad with the highest click-through rate is actually this one, which is, I think it's a horrible ad and I wrote it, but I don't think it's a great ad. But I don't know if it's got the best performance because it was launched first and the text prioritized it, or if there's something else I don't know. What I think is interesting is this is how they look in the interface in the preview. However, we've seen it in the wild in the platform as this, so slightly different. So I guess my advice is like, try and appreciate and get comfortable with the fact that it can do different things and it will test your ad in different ways, and you don't have control over that.
Kat, can I just jump in and make a quick point?
Yes,
One thing I think is interesting for an audience of kind of like PPC people, right? Like when we think of Google ads, we quite often go with like keyword-based ad copy, and a lot of people still run like that. I think there's a general pattern I'm seeing is better click-through rate on more pain point type copy, like, you know,
Yes.
what Kat's got there. And similarly for me, it's talking about the pain points rather than the product that seems to be helping our click-through rate at the moment. So I think that is worth considering as a point of difference on ads as well and copy.
I think that makes so much sense. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to come back to your question, Chris, just because if I start answering questions now, I know that I'm going to get lost and not get on Stan's section. But if you could paste that in the Q&A tab, we'll make time for that at the end. Thank you. So my next point to talk about is bidding. So another one of your levers is bidding. When you first set up an ad group, it will give you a recommended bid, which is great. I went with the recommendation. I think it was £2.50 or something at the time. And then after you've launched, very quickly, it will say increase bid. And from everyone I've spoke to, everybody's looks like this, apparently. This has changed today to move to over here in the interface, but it still does the same thing. When you click on increase bid, we're looking for a recommended bid, right? If you think about it, like what we get in Google. However, you get nothing in here. So it doesn't give you a recommendation of what to increase it to. And then when you do increase it, which I've done twice on this one, it didn't seem to impact the traffic. My CPC went up a bit, but not loads. So more to come there. I think they'll keep developing that, is what I'm saying there. Interesting one. And there is you can bid to CPC or CPM And conversion bidding is coming, right? I don't think it's out yet, but we'll be watching closely for that. Obviously not me, because I haven't got any conversions on this campaign, which is a bit embarrassing. But on clients' ones where they do. Okay, so custom audiences are here. This is exciting, but the reality of it is a bit challenging. So you can upload your first party data just like you would on other platforms, which is great. Sarah, pop that question in the Q&A. I will come back to that, I promise. What was I saying? So custom audiences are here. You need a minimum of 25,000 matched users. The reality of that is you need a massive data set to then have it match. Because if you think back to what we said in the beginning, ChatGPT is a lot smaller than those other platforms. So the match ratio is going to be much, much lower. So you need a really big data set. So for example, for house performance, we can't get anywhere near this, of course. We're not using this feature on our own campaign. But I know Dan's looking at trying it, and I think he's got some bits to say about that later. But it's going to get there, I think, which is exciting. So kind of just to round off my bit, I want you to have a few things to take away that are practical. Things you can influence performance with in platform right now, because I know I've gone on about its limitations. There are things you can do. So you can influence the structure. You can be really mindful of how, you place your campaigns and your ad groups and have things segmented out to see the data. Definitely do that. Definitely evolve it over time. There's no evidence that granular versus sort of clustered is better at the moment. We don't know the answer to that. So test. You can influence the prompts that you target, of course. Think very carefully about those. Definitely don't just ask ChatGPT for a load of prompt ideas and throw them in. Look at them, think carefully, do a thorough job. And then you can also influence the ad, as I've talked about, and the bid changes somewhat. And then there's also external optimization levers that I think are really useful. So as long as you use UTMs, you can analyze the traffic behavior in GA4 or wherever you're looking at your data, which is great. You can use third parties. So I've been working with Athena and found some really interesting insights out of that on what we're doing so far and our competitors. I know Dan's been using Peak AI, is going to share some bits about that. And then the third one is, and Dan's going to cover this, so I won't go into too much, overall marketing mix effects. So like, how is it impacting your other campaigns and what's going on? Definitely want to be considering that. And here's an example of an insight I got from Athena. So they can share things like share a voice, competitor insights, like what prompts you're showing up on. So they've identified for our campaigns that we're showing up on things to do with connected TV. Now, I'm not deliberately targeting that. It's not quite appropriate. However, you could argue that if someone is interested in that sort of thing to do with ads, they are at least in the right field for what we do. So it's not completely irrelevant, which is good, but it is quite loose. But I never would have got that insight without Athena, which I thought was great. So I'm going to hand over to Dan. I've waffled enough, I think, and he can give us his insights.
Thanks, Kat. You never waffle. That was all really good. I think, I guess what I'm going to talk about is some of the more kind of specific things that I've been doing and what I've been seeing rather than necessarily giving you advice on how to use a platform or, kind of the ways of structuring and stuff that Kat was talking about. But to give context, right, we operate in the US and the UK markets. As the data showed, right, so much more usage in the US right now. I was recently out in the US as well on a work trip and using ChatGPT there. I got ads like every prompt I put in, I got an ad in one chat. I was getting multiple different ads. In the UK, I still don't always get an ad, but I'm noticing that kind of happen a lot more often now. But our timings of this as well were launching kind of like early June, right? So in the US, I signed up months ago for early access to the beta, managed to get in on that. In the UK, we launched via StackAdapt when they became one of the first kind of partners of OpenAI to launch. Obviously, it is now available self-serve in the UK. That's why my spend is quite different. So in the US, I've been able to manage that myself at small levels, starting out and testing. Whereas in the UK with StackAdapt, we had to come in at sort of minimum spend levels to get on the platform essentially at that point. Um, Thankfully, all of that stuff is gone. If you go back to when OpenAI first announced ads, it was like you've got to spend 200K a month, 100K, 50K. Interesting, I would say, how quickly that minimum spend has dropped from them, and now they're on to self-serve. Um, but in general, we had to do that. It's probably too high. So like that would be a bit of advice I would give to people. It's like you don't need to start spending that high. It is actually better, I think, starting at a lower spend and kind of ramping up. I also treated the context field completely differently early on. So leaning into ChatGPT and AI when I first did it in the US. So context field is where you put in the information you want to give ChatGPT to decide where to serve your ads, right? And it in brackets afterwards says optional. So don't know what happens if you don't put anything in, but that's one of my next experiments I want to run. But I think that also indicates that they might not necessarily pay attention to what you put in there as well. But I let ChatGPT write me paragraphs for that in the US. Whereas in the UK, the advice that we had from StackAdapt was treating it more like we would Google Ads and putting keywords in, like just keywords, comma separated, 50 keywords in a context field. Um, Started out quite good on both fronts. Moved the US over to that keyword approach at one point to see if that would work better. Found that actually more of a kind of conversational couple of paragraphs seemed to be giving it better information, and I was getting better performance out of the campaigns. I have split my campaigns slightly differently as well. So in the US, I've gone with product. So product for me is like traditional answering service type keywords, and then separately AI product as well. So we have an AI receptionist service. You wouldn't be surprised that the AI product seems to get better response in the AI engine. I say you wouldn't be surprised. I didn't actually think about that beforehand, but it seems quite logical now that that's happening. And then I've also added in recently a category campaign, which is more looking at competitor terms as well. So, and that's been quite interesting as well, I think. And then generally as well, just wanted to make this point of leads as well, right? Like we are getting leads from this. We approached this thinking it was pretty much going to be a pure sort of awareness play, but we are seeing direct response leads as well. So that is really encouraging for a platform like this, particularly in the UK where I had to go and ask for that extra budget to do this. Um, Fortunately for me, our C-suite are very supportive of marketing generally, and they were all also very excited about ChatGPT ads and getting on there early. So I think anyone who's trying to pitch this in-house or to clients, etc., like our C-suite, our private equity board, like these guys talk about ChatGPT in their board meetings, and they're interested in doing stuff like this, and it's helped me get that budget signed off. I will add though, the CPLs are horrible. If you could go to my next slide, please, Kat. So this is me at the moment. I thought I'll get ChatGPT to create some images for me. I'd like to say that I didn't tell it to make me look like Einstein, but that was me. But this is how I feel at the moment, looking at it and trying to work out, what is going on, what is working, what isn't. The whole US UK angle, as I've kind of said and Kat said, is really interesting. Like it is performing much better out there, and I think if you are operating in US markets, you're like borderline behind if you're not using ChatGPT ads at the moment. It's that prominent and it's growing that much. Um, I think partly because of the strategy and the spend stuff that I've mentioned just now, of like going slower with lower spends in the US, that is helping me drive leads at much, much more efficient CPLs. And those CPLs are not that dissimilar to Google and Microsoft in the US for me. So I'm quite excited about that and seeing if we can scale that and keep that quality. The general metrics, I think, are better as well. So just to give some specifics to this, like CPCs, I'm seeing between $3 and $5 in the US. In the UK, it's between £8 and £10. Again, I think in the UK, because we're spending more and we're giving it more budget, it's taking that. As Kat said as well, every campaign, every ad, every ad group, it all says increase bid all the time. You increase it, it says it again the next day. So they're keen to spend your money. Um, Click-through rates again, like been quite surprised. Closer to display stuff than search, right? But in the US, I'm seeing 1% plus click-through rates, which really, really surprised and happy with. In the UK, it's closer to 0.5%, but again, I think it's budget and targeting that has not been quite as strong. And then my conversion rate is really good. And I don't know how many people on this call also work on organic channels as well, but we see that organic traffic that comes to our site through LLMs converts better than non-LLM traffic. We're kind of seeing good conversion rates, I would say. It's not setting the world alight. It's nowhere near our Google ads again, but we're in the kind of 2 to 3% conversion rate on that UK traffic, and around 4% in the US. So all much better than I was expected. I'm driving leads, but the but is the leads look relevant and good. The quality is definitely not that of a Google search generated lead. They are very small business, not terrible for me because we do serve small businesses. So it's kind of helping us reach a portion of our ICP. But the big but is that we haven't actually won a client yet. But I will say we're in that kind of sales cycle. We're in the sort of 30 to 60-day window of the first leads landing now. So I'm hoping that we will start to see them land into clients soon. And where does the channel sit in the mix and the attribution versus influence part kind of sit quite closely together, right? Like this is driving direct response for me, but I am also seeing it as more of an awareness play. And I think that is being evidenced in the attribution and the influence. So the attribution is using those UTMs as was mentioned in the chat. And generally with ad platforms, like I don't really care what an ad platform's conversion metric says. Like it's not that relevant to me, right? Like anyone can fill in a form on a website and it'll be a conversion. Like I care about what's hitting our CRM and how those leads are converting through to sales qualified ops, won clients, etc. So, I'm looking there basically at attribution, and I'm seeing leads progressing through the pipeline, so that's good. The influence part, I think, is much more interesting. So the day we launched ChatGPT ads, we had 2 people call into our business and tell our sales team that they'd seen us on ChatGPT. They obviously didn't specify ads. It could be complete luck as well, right? But that doesn't happen very often for us. The fact that we got them the day of launching ads, we also had 2 leads come through on the UTM like 30 minutes before that call. That was a really exciting day for us. We had 3 leads straight away, something like a sub £150 CPL at that time. That didn't continue throughout, unfortunately. But the other things on influence that are really interesting, and June was our highest ever month for organic ChatGPT web conversions and leads. And we also have a SDR team in our sales organization that do outbound calling. We use tech like lead forensics to see who's on our website and they follow up with those people. They also had a really strong month in June and they booked a decent number of appointments based on the traffic coming from ChatGPT generally, as well as ads as well. So there is so much kind of value that's hard to get at as well, but that's not really new for me in a B2B lead gen context. That's pretty much what we spend most of our time looking at. To the next slide, please, Kat. So what's annoying me? Like some stuff is really annoying, right? Like we've spoken about some of the targeting and stuff and the lack thereof as well. The context hints for me really suck. Like I don't believe that it follows them all the time, especially when we've been running at higher budgets. We're seeing some really random prompt serve out ads. When I'm searching as a user, I think this is not at all connected to what Kat said, but we've both been searching for garden related things recently. Me trying to find out how to turn my yellow sunburnt grass green again. I'm getting ads for Under Armour clothes. I am not even in the audience for Under Armour. I really do not care about exercise or anything like that. So it's such a random ad. And then Cat managed to get this data from Adfina, so they're obviously tracking, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of prompts and showing ads that serve, right? And our ad has served against a prompt which says people's postcode lottery versus Omaze. We have nothing in our context that talks about any of those things. Even those words will not be in our context fields. I even checked our website. Someone from Omaze came to a panel session that we did a couple of months back. I don't know if they're crawling our website and finding that and suddenly deciding that we're relevant. The best private blood test for a small business. I do have small business in a lot of my contact hints. So small business answering service is like a strong keyword for us in Google search and in SEO. So that is in there. So maybe that's how it's connecting, but you know, zero relevance for my ad to be appearing there. So I think that targeting needs to be improving, right? Like we need better context. Nick, I think those prompts are solely from Athena, just
Yeah.
just tracking like random prompts basically. So we need better targeting though. Like this isn't great at the moment. I really want geo and device targeting because I generally know that mobile doesn't perform as well for me, and something like 85-90% of the traffic this is driving is mobile. I get that's probably the platform, right? But I would love to be able to kind of do some kind of like device-based weighting, like we would have done like with device-based modifiers in the old days and stuff like that. And same for geos, like US is a big market. I'm not spending that much money there. I really want to target Texas specifically right now, and I can't do that. So that's quite annoying. Um, Measurement, like I just spoke about that, like it's just hard. Like it is hard, but it's kind of normal. And the final point I want to touch on here, like really annoying me, is like kind of early wins versus long-term value. Like every time I launch a campaign, it drives a lead like within a day, and it's a good lead. And then it slows down, and I don't see leads that often, or like I get that volume, and then it sort of just dwindles off a little bit. And speaking to some other advertisers and people that have been advertising at big 50, 100K spends, they're saying similar things to me. So I don't know whether this is maybe a bit of a kind of creative ad fatigue type thing that we might talk about on like Meta or something like that, but it's just something to consider. If you go to the next slide, please, Kat. But what's exciting, like there's still loads of exciting stuff. It's quite annoying, but there's loads of exciting stuff. Conversion-based bidding is coming. Like I said, I don't know how great that's going to be with in-platform conversions. Like we use conversion-based bidding on Google and Microsoft all the time now, but it's based on CRM conversions, not web conversions. The conversion-based bidding here looks like it's just going to be based on setting up the tracking through their pixels. Customer lists, Kat mentioned it, really cool. Tried to do it, got a terrible match rate on mine, and it won't serve. Exactly what I see on Google though, so it's not unexpected, but my data is all B2B data as well, right? So it's business email addresses. Are people using their business email address to log into a free ChatGPT account? Don't know. What's next from OpenAI? Like that could be super exciting. Like they know so much about people now. I think they could do something really cool with like audience-based targeting. Would they want to do that though, is the question. I always come back to that quote that I think Sam Altman said in the early days. It was like if they have to run an ad platform, they failed. They're going to need to run an ad platform, right? Like they're going to need to make that revenue. So hopefully they improve
100%.
that. And then the third party tools, like Kat's been mentioning Adfina, we use a platform called Peak, which is more designed for like organic ChatGPT, AEO, GEO, whatever you want to call it. And we just track prompts relative to our business in there. They literally on like Monday of this week launched this ads interface in there, which has been so interesting. It's like some of the standout things I've seen is that like you can see that out of 128 prompts we're tracking, 91 of them have got ads against them. When I filter that down to geos, every single prompt in the US has ads running, whereas in the UK it's like 50% ish at the moment. And it's also pulling out like ad copy and creatives as well, which again, like super interesting. Um, Found a new competitor, Lohman there, never came across them before in any other auctions or anything like that, but they're present here. One of the bigger competitors in the US market. It's just interesting to see like all their ad creative is all about the legal sector. It's just giving me little insights on how they're using ChatGPT ads that like I can't get from OpenAI and I can't even get from just searching necessarily. So I imagine we're going to get loads more stuff like this coming out in the next few months, and it's going to be really valuable because there's so little to optimize from and target in the platform. And then my next slide, please, Kat. I'm not going to talk through this, but I just wanted to kind of, show some like transparency on like how I'm looking at this internally and how I'm kind of taking this back to our C-suite, because they signed off that extra budget and they're super interested in it, but they're a C-suite of a private equity business. Like they want to know results. And my basic summary of it is like it's decent, right? Like it's a good platform. It's incremental to other activity. It sits between awareness and direct response. We need to run it at lower spends. I think that's the great thing for everyone who's not yet done it. Like start out small and just test it. That $25 a day, pound a day minimum they have now means you could run a test in August with less than £1,000 budget. Like go for it and see what happens. So yeah, we'll share these slides so you can see this a little bit more, but that's just kind of how I'm trying to position it. A lot of the things I'm seeing right now, there's some annoying stuff, there's some exciting stuff. I think you've got to test it. Like it's at the point of you starting to fall behind if your business isn't on there. So give it a go.
Couldn't agree
I think
more.
that's me, Kat. Is that right?
Amazing. Thank you. So I've just got a couple more bits to say before we get into Q&A. I can see there's loads of questions. So hopefully you found this useful. If you did, let us know. If you didn't, we don't want to hear about that. But just thinking about your next steps, like I would, as Dan said, like if you're not thinking about it, you are clearly thinking about it because you're here, but like it's definitely important to be thinking about and being aware of, weigh up the opportunity. If you can do a test, highly recommend it. It's not, it's not overly complex. You just need to get budget sign off and get in there and do it. But weigh up the opportunity. Obviously, you need to know your limitations of your business. Like, for example, we have a lot of clients that are very location specific, need to target by a specific city or even like smaller geographic radius. This isn't relevant to them right now for that tactic, but maybe for different ones, or maybe in time the platform will develop. I would look in wherever you're tracking your analytics, so Geo4 or Adobe, whatever you're using, and measure how much traffic and potential customers you're getting from ChatGPT now, because that can be quite a useful way to get buy-in from other stakeholders. Like as Dan said, they were already getting a little bit, I think, and now they're getting loads since launching paid, which is really interesting. And definitely keep close to platform updates and developments. Dan and I definitely will be sharing more and more stuff as it comes out, as lots of people are. So keep an eye on it, because I'm sure before you know it, you will be able to target by device or maybe even demographic or more specific interests. They will definitely keep developing it because they'll see the uptake increase and therefore they make more money, right? So it's in their interest to develop it. And then just a final kind of like slide from me is how can we help? So if you want help with this, we will obviously share updates as we see them. We'd love people to start sharing theirs, like, wherever you share your stuff, whether it's LinkedIn or if you want to get on email with us. We love hearing about performance. I was just this morning on LinkedIn chatting away with Matt Beswick about some challenges he's having with a feed on there. It's all interesting. And I think it's really good for the community to be sharing this stuff so that we make less mistakes, and we learn more together. If you want help from us specifically, we can provide you with a campaign planning and build template that we've got. So just drop me a line or the company after this, and we can talk about that. And we obviously offer strategic consultancy and a managed service on this as well, if you're interested in getting more hands-on specific help. We'd love to see more people use it, definitely. So that's the end of our content, and we've just got 10 minutes for questions, which is great, I think. So I am going to field these questions. Matthews wrote, how are feed-based ads working for you? Well, I haven't tested any yet. And I think that's Matt Beswick. I haven't tested any yet, but if anyone else has got any comments about that, it'd be great to share in the chat. That would be super helpful. But I haven't experienced it yet. Do you still need to be you need to apply to be whitelisted to be able to advertise? No, you do not. It's not difficult to set up now at all. There might be some like policy things, hurdles to jump through. And I know, like, for example, Dan had an experience with a billing challenge, but you said the help center from ChatGPT was actually better than anything you had from Google.
Yeah, it was AI based first on chat, which was quite good. And then they got a person on it when it needed some help, and it was resolved within like 48 hours. So like way better than obviously with Google and Microsoft.
I think they have definitely invested in making it easier for us, which is great. So no, you can just go on OpenAI ads and set up an account. It's not that difficult now, which is great. What's this one? It says, is it possible that ad targeting is influenced by prompts or topics from a user's previous conversations? Totally possible. We don't know. I would like to think it is. So, for example, I'm asking it a lot of questions about, sound like such a loser. I'm asking it a lot of questions about plants and looking after my garden. However, I have obviously used it for work-related things too. So it should put two and two together, you would think, and give me ads relevant to, I don't know, running a business or running an agency, working digital marketing. I would assume it is. It'd be stupid not to, but we don't know that and we can't see that. That, I think, is the challenge with that question.
I think there's another, sorry, I'm not in the order here, Kat, there was another question about like the personalized ads. And obviously when you go into ChatGPT for the first time, it does ask you whether you want to opt into personalized or non-personalized. So again, like we obviously don't know how they then use that in the auction, but my assumption would be based on like the responses you get to like organic chats and responses from ChatGPT, it does sometimes reference like other chats you've had, right? And it remembers that stuff about you. So like, my guess would be it's logical that they probably do that, but I don't think they've specifically overtly said that, have they?
No, they might be too scared to because of data capture and stuff. I don't. It's a sticky one, isn't it? Somebody asked, we've already sort of said yes to this, but difference in performance between UK and US is because US is more established. We definitely think that, like 100%. I would say users in America are already more comfortable with having ads served to them on there. The rest of the markets will catch up, I'm sure, as they already are. Dominica has asked, what are your thoughts on the use of ChatGPT ads in the luxury market? Is it worth considering? I would say yes. I think as long as you really try and think about it from a brand awareness and adding value type lens, I think it's great for luxury. There's anybody and everybody's on there, right? So there are ways to find your audience, definitely. So yeah, we haven't tested it on any of our luxury clients yet, but it's definitely in the pipeline to happen for sure. Any comments on that, Dan? Sorry.
No, 100% agree. I think it's less about what you sell and more about who you're selling to, right? And I think generally, I guess early adopters of LLMs and people using LLMs generally, I think in my experience, I would say skew towards like business owners, therefore higher net worth individuals, stuff like that. So I would think you're really good for awareness in luxury markets.
Yeah, for sure. what other industries are really upping their game right now? So Nikki said, I spotted insurers advertising heavily. We're definitely seeing insurers, tech. We're having a lot of conversations with clients in travel. And I think it's really interesting for travel because I know a lot of people go there to research, about to plan holidays and get information. So all kinds of industries, really. I mean, look at Dan, it's B2B.
Definitely seen loads of travel, by the way. Like
Mm,
recently been booking a holiday and like can't get rid of booking.com in there.
yeah, getting
Comparison
red
engines as
flags.
well, like Go Compare, stuff like that. I've definitely seen those kind of guys quite a lot. Um, but my experience in the US market in particular as well is like I'm seeing like a lot of small brands like and
Yeah.
startups that like I don't know that are operating in our sector and haven't heard of before, but they are using it as well. So um, yeah,
I
again,
think
that
that
comes
makes
back to what
sense.
yeah,
Go on.
I think it just comes back to what you said about luxury. It's like the types of people like that are using ChatGPT is kind of like everybody, right? Like everyone's using it. So all industries, I think, have a fit there.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, your point about seeing brands that you've never heard of that are in your space, probably they can't compete with you on Google because the CPCs are too high.
Mm.
So it's a good place to be because it is cheaper. It's not as competitive. So you get that early advantage, I would say. I'm sure it will get more expensive as it grows, I've no doubt. But right now, it is actually quite cheap.
Mm.
Whereas Google and Meta is so saturated, right, for so many industries.
Cheap, and also to my experience, like it's comparable like cost to display, but I'm seeing better direct response than I would with display. So,
Yeah.
commercial
Yeah.
value as well as being a cheap awareness driver.
Yes. That's the thing. I know I said earlier, you should treat it a bit more like contextual displays. I'm still not saying it's the same as that. It's just more in that lane, isn't it? And you need to
Mm.
think about it more in that way. Um, Nikki's asked, can you see any audience demographics? How do you know your ads aren't being shown to kids? You can't. We don't know. You can't see anything about that. So we have no idea who's seeing it. Um, I would say because the click-through rates aren't horrifically low, that tells me that they're being served to semi the right people. I mean, back in the day, we used to run some display campaigns that the click-through rate was horrific. So I actually think it's not as bad as people are suspecting, but we can't prove it. I wonder how many kids are using ChatGPT. That's a whole nother question, isn't it? Um, Sarah said,
I guess, sorry,
oh, sorry, go on,
I
Dan.
haven't looked at this for years in GA4, but I guess you could look at some of that demographic insight in GA4.
What with traffic by that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't done
yeah,
that
that's
and
true.
thought to,
I haven't
but
done that either. We should do that. Part two, when we get more data for sure. Um, Sarah said out 600 clicks. Did you not notice an increase in leads? I didn't. No. We do get leads from ChatGPT though for our agency stuff. But I haven't specifically seen that. No, not
I've
yet.
upped budgets a couple of times as well, and I don't think I would say I've seen an impact from upping a budget, but where I've seen an impact from is starting like a new campaign
Mhm.
more than a budget. So it's my point about like why I'm saying like a lot of people saying they see early results and then it dwindles off a little bit, and why that's annoying me. Like
Yeah.
I'm half tempted to just like pause my campaigns and dupe them out like every couple of weeks for a while
Yeah,
and
it's
see if
weird, isn't
that
it?
keeps working.
Quite a lot of work though, but yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Um, Chris said, could the truncation of the ad copy when it gets shortened, could it encourage click through partially out curiosity? I guess that depends how good the first part of your title is, right? If your headline's really, really good, maybe. I think that is interesting. I would play with it, test it. My click through rates on the truncated ones are equally as good as the non. So, my gut says it's not great, but the evidence isn't there yet. Neil said, have the majority of prompts you've seen from Adthena been relevant? So for my campaign for house performance, I would say they're relevant to the space in general, but they're not specific to what I've put in. So we're appearing a lot on people looking at TV and connected TV buying. which we do a bit of connected TV, but that's certainly not our core. And we're looking to appear on things like PPC and paid social. But that's where it's been really useful, because then I can look back through my prompts and see that. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that, Dan.
No, I think yeah, like there was some good relevance in there. I think obviously it's like all things with LLMs and Peak, the platform I mentioned we use, like it's only as good as the prompts you track. So you know, I think there were definitely more irrelevant ones in there than I expected from what they shared. So that is quite annoying. Um but I guess the lens I'm preferring to focus it on is that actually on the prompts I track that I know are relevant, we are showing up on those ones as well. So it's kind of like broad match, right? Like so many keywords it does show up for at times that are not relevant to me in paid search, but then and it finds me some really good ones that are cheap and convert as well. So it's in that kind of space at the moment.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, I think we're running out of time. I think we've got time for one more question, which I'm just trying to find in the list. 'Cause it was very specific. So Kelly said, we've been running ChatGPT ads in D2C health and wellness, spent £500. No sales come through. Understand it's not direct response. However, it's hard to justify when you don't know where you're appearing. She said CPC keeps going up too, so I have to keep increasing. So my thoughts on that are, just because it says you should increase your bid doesn't mean you have to. Okay, so I've started ignoring that prompt, because when I did increase the bid, it didn't really seem to impact anything. Dan, I don't know if you want to add anything on that last point.
I think you need a platform like a Peak or Adina to help you in that instance. And like, unfortunately they are paid for at the moment. And I feel like we're trying to sell them here, Cat. We're not at all. But that's just kind of helping me do exactly that, right? Like even though I'm not seeing loads of leads and it's nothing I've seen, I think, justifies the cost alone at this moment in time. But a platform like Peak in particular for me, because it's the prompts I want to be visible on.
Mm.
Like being able to evidence that is valuable, I think, and it's helping me to sort of say to the business, like, look, we're present, like we are there when people are searching for our product, when they're showing that need, we're visible. So,
Yeah.
Something like that. I'm sure that there will be there's like I don't know 20 30 different like AEO platforms that do this kind of stuff, so I'm sure there'll be some more that come
Yeah.
out and they're cheap and probably even free eventually, I imagine. So I don't think OpenAI are ever going to give us that insight though, so you probably do have to pay for it at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Okay, we have run out of time. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for your questions. Sorry if we didn't get to your question, but if you want to drop us a line after, Dan and I, we can drop our LinkedIn's. We'll follow up with the recording and our connect details to connect. Yeah, hope everyone has a good Friday and a great weekend. That's all.